Two neighboring states share a border that stretches for hundreds of miles, yet one has become home to over 7.2 million Americans, while the other houses just 4.6 million. Kentucky and Tennessee were once separated by less than 500,000 people, but today the gap between them has grown into a chasm that reveals something fascinating about how geography, economics, and policy decisions shape where people choose to build their lives. Tennessee now attracts new residents at nearly triple Kentucky's rate, creating a population shift that continues to accelerate each year. What happened between these sister states that caused such a dramatic transformation in their fortunes? The numbers tell a stark story. The numbers paint a picture that would shock anyone familiar with these states just 70 years ago. Tennessee now houses 7.2 million residents, while Kentucky maintains 4.6 million people. That represents a difference of over 2.6 million Americans who call Tennessee home instead of its northern neighbor. The raw numbers tell only part of the story, because this gap represents the culmination of decades of divergent paths that have fundamentally altered the demographic landscape of the American South. Back in 1950, these two states painted a completely different picture. Kentucky actually held a slight population advantage with 2.9 million residents compared to Tennessee's 3.3 million. The difference amounted to fewer than 400,000 people, and most demographers expected the states to grow at similar rates given their shared geographic position and cultural heritage. Both states emerged from World War II with similar economic foundations built on agriculture, manufacturing, and natural resource extraction. Their populations reflected comparable rural and urban distributions, with neither state showing clear advantages in attracting new residents or retaining existing ones. The transformation began in the 1960s and accelerated through each subsequent decade. Tennessee started pulling ahead gradually at first, then with increasing momentum. By 1980, Tennessee had opened up a gap of nearly 800,000 residents. The 1990s saw that gap expand to 1.2 million people. The new millennium brought even more dramatic divergence as Tennessee added residents at an unprecedented pace, while Kentucky's growth stagnated. Each census count revealed Tennessee extending its lead by hundreds of thousands of additional residents. Current migration data shows Tennessee continuing to widen this gap at an alarming rate from Kentucky's perspective. Tennessee attracts approximately 120,000 new residents annually through domestic migration, while Kentucky manages to gain only about 45,000 people per year. That represents nearly a 3-to-1 advantage in population attraction that compounds annually. Tennessee's growth rate of 1.6% per year far exceeds Kentucky's modest 0.7% annual increase. At these rates, Tennessee will house over 8.5 million people by 2030, while Kentucky will barely reach 4.8 million residents. These numbers become even more puzzling when geography enters the equation. Kentucky actually covers 40,409 square miles compared to Tennessee's 42,144 square miles. The difference amounts to less than 2,000 square miles, or roughly 4% more land area in Tennessee. Kentucky's slightly smaller size should theoretically make population concentrations easier to achieve and infrastructure more efficient to build. Instead, the opposite has occurred, with Tennessee supporting nearly 171 people per square mile, while Kentucky manages only 114 residents per square mile. The population density gap reveals that Tennessee has become dramatically more successful at attracting people to settle within its borders. Migration patterns reveal deeper truths about American demographic shifts that extend far beyond these two states. Tennessee represents one of the fastest-growing states in the entire nation, ranking consistently in the top 10 for population growth over the past 2 decades. Kentucky, meanwhile, ranks in the bottom half of states for population attraction and has lost ground relative to national averages. The divergence reflects broader trends in American migration, where certain states have developed magnetic qualities that draw residents from across the country, while others struggle to maintain their existing populations. Population growth carries enormous implications that extend far beyond simple demographic curiosity. Congressional representation directly correlates with population counts measured every 10 years through the national census. Tennessee has gained congressional seats in recent reapportionments, while Kentucky has lost representation in the House of Representatives. Federal funding formulas tie billions of dollars in government spending to population figures, affecting everything from highway construction to education support to healthcare programs. States with growing populations receive increasing shares of federal resources, while declining states face budget pressures and reduced political influence. Economic opportunities multiply in states that attract new residents because growing populations create expanding markets for goods and services. Businesses gravitate toward areas with increasing customer bases and growing workforces. The population advantage creates a feedback loop where growth attracts more businesses, which provide more jobs, which draw more residents, which attract additional businesses. Kentucky faces the opposite dynamic, where slow population growth limits market expansion and reduces the state's attractiveness to major employers considering expansion or relocation decisions. The political implications extend beyond congressional representation to include presidential elections and national political influence. Tennessee's growing population increases its importance in national campaigns, while Kentucky's relative decline reduces its political leverage. Electoral votes shift based on population counts, giving growing states more influence in presidential elections. Tennessee has gained electoral significance, while Kentucky has seen its national political importance diminish relative to faster-growing states across the South and West. Understanding what drives this population shift requires examining the specific factors that make Tennessee attractive to millions of Americans, while Kentucky fails to generate similar appeal. The reasons go far beyond simple economic opportunities or demographic trends. They involve complex interactions between natural advantages and strategic decisions that have created a self-reinforcing cycle of growth in Tennessee and stagnation in Kentucky. The foundation of Tennessee's success begins with advantages that were established long before modern migration patterns emerged. The geographic foundation of success. Tennessee's elongated shape stretches 432 miles from east to west, while measuring only 112 miles from north to south, creating a natural corridor that accommodates major transportation routes crossing the American continent. This distinctive geography positions Tennessee as an inevitable waypoint for commerce and travel moving between the Atlantic coast and the western United States. Kentucky presents a markedly different profile, with dimensions of 380 miles east to west and 180 miles north to south, creating a more compact rectangular shape that limits opportunities for major interstate highways and rail networks to traverse the state longitudinally. Transportation planners naturally route major corridors through Tennessee's wider east-west expanse, rather than attempting to navigate Kentucky's more constrained geographic envelope. The result places Tennessee squarely in the path of American commerce, while Kentucky occupies a more peripheral position relative to major transportation flows. Tennessee serves as the geographic bridge between America's industrial heartland and the rapidly growing southeastern states, with interstate highways and rail networks naturally funneling through the state when moving freight and passengers between major metropolitan areas like Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland in the north, and Atlanta, Miami, and Houston in the south. Location analysis reveals that Tennessee places businesses and residents within a single day's drive of approximately 75% of the American population. This accessibility advantage proves particularly valuable for manufacturing companies seeking to minimize transportation costs and delivery times to major markets. Kentucky's position places the state within similar driving distance to roughly 65% of the national population, a meaningful disadvantage when companies evaluate potential locations for major facilities. The 10% difference in population accessibility translates into millions of potential customers and billions of dollars in economic activity that naturally gravitates toward Tennessee. Major interstate highways demonstrate Tennessee's transportation advantages through their routing patterns across the American landscape. Interstate 40 runs directly through Tennessee's midsection, connecting Los Angeles to Wilmington, North Carolina, and carrying massive volumes of transcontinental freight traffic. Interstate 75 enters Tennessee from Kentucky and continues south through major cities like Knoxville and Chattanooga before reaching Florida, creating another vital north-south corridor. Interstate 65 bisects Tennessee from Nashville south to the Gulf Coast, providing additional connectivity to growing southeastern markets. These three major interstates intersect within Tennessee, creating a transportation hub that Kentucky cannot replicate given its more northern position and different geographic orientation. Kentucky's interstate system includes portions of I-75, I-65, and I-64, but lacks the comprehensive network that makes Tennessee a natural logistics center. Interstate 64 runs east-west through Kentucky, but connects less economically dynamic regions compared to Tennessee's major corridors. The absence of a major east-west interstate comparable to I-40 limits Kentucky's role in transcontinental commerce. Kentucky's interstate network serves regional transportation needs effectively, but fails to position the state as an essential waypoint for national freight movement and long-distance travel. Rail transportation networks reinforce Tennessee's geographic advantages through similar routing patterns that favor the state's elongated shape and central position. Major freight railroads, including CSX, Norfolk Southern, and BNSF, operate extensive networks through Tennessee, connecting ports, manufacturing centers, and distribution hubs across multiple regions. Tennessee's geography accommodates rail lines that can maintain relatively gentle grades and direct routes between major economic centers. Railroad companies have invested billions of dollars in Tennessee infrastructure, recognizing the state's strategic importance for efficient freight movement across the American continent. Kentucky's mountainous eastern region creates significant barriers to transportation development that Tennessee's river valley geography avoids entirely. The Appalachian Mountains extend deep into eastern Kentucky, creating terrain that requires expensive tunneling and extensive grading for highway and rail construction. These geographic obstacles increase construction costs and limit the feasibility of major transportation projects. Tennessee's landscape includes the Cumberland Plateau and portions of the Appalachian foothills, but the state's major population and economic centers developed in river valleys that provide natural corridors for transportation infrastructure. The Tennessee River system creates additional geographic advantages by providing navigable waterways that connect the state to the broader Mississippi River network. This river access enables barge transportation of bulk commodities like coal, grain, and petroleum products at costs significantly lower than truck or rail transport. Tennessee's connection to the Mississippi River system through the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers provides direct water access to international markets via the Port of New Orleans. Kentucky possesses Ohio River access along its northern border, but lacks the comprehensive river network that gives Tennessee multiple water transportation options. This exemplifies how Tennessee leverages geographic advantages into economic development through its position on the Mississippi River. The city serves as a major inland port, handling millions of tons of cargo annually while providing intermodal connections between river barge, rail, and truck transportation. Distribution and logistics companies consistently choose Tennessee locations over Kentucky alternatives when establishing major facilities serving regional or national markets. FedEx built its global hub in Memphis specifically because of the city's central location and transportation connections. Manufacturing companies follow similar location logic when evaluating sites for production facilities serving multiple regional markets. Automotive manufacturers including Nissan, General Motors, and Volkswagen have established major assembly plants in Tennessee partly because the state's geographic position minimizes transportation costs for both incoming components and finished vehicle distribution. These manufacturing facilities employ thousands of workers while supporting additional jobs in supplier companies and service industries. The compounding effect of geographic advantages creates a self-reinforcing cycle where Tennessee's natural transportation position attracts businesses, which then draw workers and families seeking employment opportunities. Each new major employer strengthens Tennessee's economic foundation while adding to the population base that makes the state even more attractive to future business investment. These geographic foundations have enabled Tennessee to develop something Kentucky struggles to match: major metropolitan areas that serve as magnets for population growth and economic development. The metro area advantage. Nashville has transformed into a massive 2.3 million person metropolitan area that dwarfs Louisville's 1.4 million residents by nearly 1 million people. This gap represents more than just numbers because it demonstrates how Tennessee has successfully concentrated population growth in major urban centers, while Kentucky struggles to achieve similar metropolitan expansion. Nashville's explosive growth has created a gravitational pull that extends far beyond Tennessee's borders, drawing residents from across the southeastern United States, including significant numbers from Kentucky itself. Memphis maintains 1.3 million residents despite facing various economic challenges over recent decades, while Lexington struggles to reach 600,000 people in its metropolitan area. The comparison reveals that even Tennessee's second-largest metropolitan area nearly matches the combined population of Kentucky's two primary urban centers. Memphis benefits from its position on the Mississippi River and its role as a major logistics hub, which continues to attract businesses and workers even during periods of urban decline in other Rust Belt cities. Lexington, meanwhile, represents Kentucky's second-largest metropolitan area, but fails to generate the economic momentum necessary to compete with Tennessee's major urban centers for new residents and business investment. Nashville's transformation from a regional city known primarily for country music into a national destination represents one of the most remarkable urban success stories in modern American history. 2 decades ago, Nashville functioned as a mid-sized southern city with limited appeal beyond its entertainment industry and regional banking sector. The metropolitan area housed fewer than 1.2 million residents and ranked well below cities like Louisville in terms of economic diversity and national recognition. Today, Nashville attracts major corporations relocating from expensive coastal markets while drawing young professionals from across the country seeking career opportunities in a lower-cost environment with urban amenities. Tennessee's 4 major metropolitan areas create a network effect that Kentucky's 2 primary cities cannot match regardless of their individual growth rates. Nashville, Memphis, Knoxville, and Chattanooga each serve distinct economic functions while supporting each other through transportation connections, business relationships, and shared infrastructure investments. Nashville functions as the state capital and major business center, while Memphis serves as a logistics and distribution hub. Knoxville anchors the eastern region with the University of Tennessee and nuclear research facilities, while Chattanooga has reinvented itself as a technology and outdoor recreation center. This distributed network allows Tennessee to capture different types of economic activity and population growth across multiple regions. Kentucky's metropolitan structure relies heavily on Louisville and Lexington, with no other cities approaching significant size or economic influence. Louisville serves as the state's largest city and primary economic center, but lacks the diverse industry base that makes Nashville attractive to a broader range of businesses and workers. Lexington functions as the state's second city, anchored by the University of Kentucky and horse industry, but struggles to generate the economic momentum necessary for sustained population growth. The absence of additional major metropolitan areas limits Kentucky's ability to distribute economic development across different regions, while concentrating too much dependence on just two urban centers. Urban planning and annexation policies have allowed Tennessee cities to capture suburban growth more effectively than Kentucky's more restrictive approach to municipal expansion. Nashville has aggressively annexed surrounding communities and unincorporated areas, enabling the city to maintain tax revenue from suburban development while providing municipal services to growing areas. This strategy allows Nashville to capture the economic benefits of suburban growth while maintaining political control over land use decisions that affect the entire metropolitan region. Memphis has followed similar annexation strategies despite facing different economic challenges, allowing the city to maintain its population base even during periods of urban core decline. Kentucky cities face more restrictive annexation laws that limit their ability to capture suburban growth and expand municipal boundaries. Louisville completed a major city-county merger in 2003 that created Metro Louisville, but this consolidation came decades after similar efforts in Tennessee cities had already established their competitive advantages. Lexington operates under a merged city-county government, but covers a smaller geographic area that limits opportunities for significant population growth through territorial expansion. Economic diversity represents a fundamental advantage for Tennessee metropolitan areas compared to Kentucky's more limited industrial base concentrated in Louisville and Lexington. Louisville's economy depends heavily on shipping logistics through its Ohio River port position, manufacturing, including automotive and appliance production and healthcare systems. While these industries provide stable employment, they offer less diversity than Nashville's broader economic base and fewer opportunities for rapid career advancement that attracts young professionals. Lexington relies on the University of Kentucky horse industry, agriculture, and some manufacturing, but lacks the economic diversity necessary to compete with Tennessee cities for major corporate relocations or startup activity. Chattanooga and Knoxville provide additional population centers that distribute growth across Tennessee rather than concentrating all development in one or two metropolitan areas. Chattanooga houses approximately 550,000 residents in its metropolitan area, while Knoxville supports nearly 900,000 people. These cities offer employment opportunities, government services, cultural amenities, and educational institutions that keep residents within Tennessee rather than forcing them to migrate to other states for career advancement. Kentucky lacks comparable third and fourth tier cities that could distribute population growth beyond Louisville and Lexington. Bowling Green represents Kentucky's third largest city, but supports fewer than 180,000 metropolitan residents. Brain drain represents perhaps the most damaging aspect of Kentucky's metropolitan disadvantage, as college graduates increasingly choose Tennessee's larger job markets over limited opportunities within their home state. Kentucky universities produce thousands of graduates annually, but the state's metropolitan areas cannot provide sufficient career opportunities in growing industries that appeal to educated workers. Tennessee's diverse metropolitan job markets attract these Kentucky graduates, along with similar talent from other southeastern states, creating a concentration of skilled workers that supports continued economic growth and business attraction. The metropolitan advantage creates a self-reinforcing cycle where population growth attracts businesses which provide employment opportunities that draw additional residents who support more business development. This dynamic has transformed Tennessee's urban centers into economic powerhouses that extend their influence far beyond traditional boundaries. The Music City Economic Engine. Nashville's economic transformation over the past 3 decades represents one of the most dramatic urban reinventions in American history, extending far beyond the country music industry that originally put the city on the map. The city that once functioned primarily as a regional center for recording studios and music publishing has evolved into a diversified economic powerhouse that competes with established business centers like Atlanta, Charlotte, and Dallas, for major corporate investments and skilled workers. This economic expansion has created employment opportunities across multiple industries, while establishing Nashville as a destination for professionals seeking career advancement in a lower-cost environment compared to expensive coastal markets.